All right, let's dive right into one of the biggest and sometimes, let's be honest, most uncomfortable questions in all of psychology. Why do we so often go along with the group, even when we know the group is totally wrong? Today, we're going to explore the fascinating and pretty revealing architecture of group conformity.
I mean, think about it for a second. You've been there, right? You're in a meeting at work or just chatting with your friends, maybe even just trying to pick a place for dinner. You know what you think, you've got a clear opinion, but then everyone else says the exact opposite. And what do? You just stay quiet? You bite your tongue? That feeling, it's universal. And believe me, it is not an accident.
And that exact feeling is what got a psychologist named Solomon Asch really curious back in the 1950s. He wanted to scientifically measure the power of the group. He knew it wasn't enough to just ask people how they felt. No, he had to create a situation where he could see it, watch conformity happen with his own two eyes, in real time.
So, how did he do it? Well, he came up with what looked like a super simple, maybe even a little boring vision test. But that's where the genius of it was. The real magic was hidden in just how simple it seemed.
Seriously, this was the whole task. You look at the line on the left, you look at the three lines on the right, A, B, and C, and you just pick the one that matches. I mean, come on, look at this right now. The answer is obviously C, right? It's not a trick question. There's zero ambiguity. Anyone should be able to get this right every single time. And the instructions they gave people? Totally straightforward. No tricks, no hidden puzzles, nothing like that. Just a simple, basic match the line test over and over again with a few different cards. Okay, so now I want you to imagine you're actually there. You're in the room, sitting at this table with 7 other people. You're near the end of the line. The experiment starts. The first person gives their answer, then the second, then the third, all the way down the table, and then it's your turn. And this is where everything changes. Because that simple little vision test, it was a complete lie. This experiment had nothing to do with vision. It was all about pressure. The whole thing was a carefully designed illusion. Here's the real setup. You were the only real participant in that room. Every single one of the other 7 participants, they were actors. They were working for Asch. And their job wasn't to pick the right line. Nope. Their job was to create a social reality, one that went directly against what your own eyes were telling you. So, the first few rounds go exactly as you'd expect. Everyone says the obvious correct answer. C, C, C. No problem. You're feeling good. This is easy. And then the next card comes up. The answer is clearly 100% B. But the first person confidently says A. And you're thinking, what? Then the second person says A, and the third, and the fourth, all 7 of them down the line say A. And now all eyes are on you. It's your turn. What do? I mean, you're caught in this psychological trap. Do you trust what you can clearly see with your own 2 eyes and risk looking like the fool who's all alone? Or do you just ignore what you know is true and go along with the group? The pressure in that moment, it's just immense. So let's get to the shocking results. How did real people actually react when they were put in this crazy position? Well, the findings were even more powerful than Asch himself ever expected. 33%. Just let that number hang in the air for a second. On average, on those key trials where the actors all gave the wrong answer, a third of the real participants just went along with them. 1 out of every 3 times, a person looked at something that was obviously wrong and said it was right. Yeah, on average, people conformed a third of the time to a clearly wrong answer. And get this, it wasn't just a few people caving over and over. A full 75% of participants conformed at least one time. But here's maybe the most hopeful part of the whole study. Asch ran another version where just one of the actors broke from the group and gave the correct answer. Just one person. And you know what happened? Conformity rates just plummeted. The power of having just one single ally was enough to pretty much shatter the group's hold. So, the big question is, why? Why on earth would perfectly rational people just abandon the truth like that? Well, the answer gets at one of the most powerful forces in all of human behavior. It all comes down to a key concept called normative social influence. Now, I know that sounds like a textbook term, but it's actually a really simple idea. It just means that we are social animals, We have this deep-seated need to belong to the tribe. A lot of the time, conforming isn't really about finding the right answer. It's about being accepted by the group. And really, there are two sides to that coin, right? On one hand, there's the pull, that desire to fit in and be liked. But on the other hand, there's the push, this very real fear of being made fun of, or worse, being cast out for being different. That feeling of standing alone can be so uncomfortable that we'll say something we know isn't true, just to make it go away.
Look, this whole experiment, it's not some dusty old thing from a lab in the 1950s. This blueprint, this architecture of conformity, it's playing out all around us, every single day. Let's talk about how you can see it in your own life.
Think about it, that room full of actors saying the wrong answer, that's the exact same social force as a boardroom full of your coworkers all nodding along to a terrible idea. It's that same pressure you feel when your friends all have an opinion you don't share, but you just agree to keep the peace. Or even just following some online trend you don't really understand. The situation might look different, but the underlying pressure, it's exactly the same. So, if there's one big thing to take away from all this, it's that our need to be part of the group is an incredibly powerful force. And you know what? That's a feature of being human. It's not a bug. But, and this is a big but, understanding just how powerful that force is, that's the first step to being able to choose when to go along, and maybe more importantly, when to stand your ground.
Honestly, just being aware of this invisible pressure is like having a superpower. It doesn't mean you have to be a contrarian all the time, not at all. It just means you have a choice. So the next time you're in a situation and you feel that pull to just go along with everyone else, you can stop and ask yourself a simple question. Am I agreeing because I actually think they're right, or am I just agreeing because I'm afraid to be the only one who's different? The answer just might surprise you.